folks, thank you for tuning into your daily silver news. My name is Silver Slayer, and if you want the latest information of what's happening across the globe and how that affects the price of precious metals, make sure you click subscribe. If you want a chance to win some free silver, go head over to my second channel called Down the Rabbit Hole. Go comment on that video I posted about Project MK Ultra, and you're entered. So may the luckiest stacker win. If you are a veteran and you want an opportunity to get more benefits, medical benefits, then I will also post a link in the description of the pinned comment. I'm partnered with American Medical Experts, AME. Over 17 million veterans aren't getting the benefits they truly deserve. So if that interests you or someone you know, go check that out. And if you wanted to purchase precious metals, then email info@milesfranklin.com. Andy Scheckman's the CEO of Miles Franklin. Let him know Slayer sent you. It helps me out. And now with all of those plugs out of the way, we paid the bills, folks. Let's jump into this article talking about central bank silver purchases. Russia leads smart money. It's not ironic, folks, just like in my last video. It is not ironic that we have David Bateman, a billionaire that bought $1 billion worth of silver. He said he is placing a $1 billion bet against the monetary system. He's basically saying, I'm putting up $1 billion guaranteeing that the financial system is going to collapse. And that was his bet with silver as the opposition to the fiat system. So not only do we have billionaires, not only do we have countries like Russia and India and China, but banks. This is talking about central bank silver purchases. This is something very interesting, folks. Central banks abandoned silver for decades until now. But why now? Well, folks, buckle up and let's find out. Central bank silver purchases. Russia leads smart money. And remember, Russia completely cut ties with the US dollar a couple years ago. So, I mean, if they're following smart money and they're making all of these smart moves with the financial system, cutting off the US dollar is one of their their strategies. So, introduction. And by the way, I say that meaning, is that what you should do too? I mean, if we determine a country's wealth on how much gold and silver they own, not how many dollars they print off, then let's apply that to us as well. That means no matter how much money I have in my bank account, we're determining wealth on how much physical, tangible gold and silver I have. Because if that's how we determine a country's wealth, then wouldn't that break down to a person too? Central banks are virtually absent from the silver market in 2024, 2025, with one historic exception. Russia has become the first nation to explicitly announce silver purchases for state reserves during the current precious metals bull market, allocating $535 million over 3 years. This groundbreaking move comes as central banks continue their gold buying spree, purchases over 1,000 tons annually since 2022. 1,000 tons, while completely ignoring silver, creating a stark disparity that may signal an unprecedented investment opportunity. The timing is critical. Silver faces its 5th consecutive year of supply deficits, with industrial demand hitting record levels of 680 million ounces in 2024, while Comex inventories plunged to 15-year lows. And by the way, total demand is 1.3 billion, around 1.3 billion ounces. Industrial hitting record levels of 680 million. We had a supply deficit of 124 or 140 something million ounces in the red. And this year, over the last 5 years, it's been over 1 billion ounces in the red. So this is a situation that's only going to continue to get worse. But at the end of the day, there's one thing to take note of. Now we have Russia also, trying to get a slice of the silver pie. Not only just India and China. Remember how much silver India has been buying over the last couple of years, astonishing amounts. So central banks abandoned silver for decades until now. The relationship between central banks and silver has been one of abandonment for over half a century, following the crime of 1873 when The US demonetized silver for the final exit of silver from the monetary system after Nixon ended the Bretton Woods Agreement in 1971. Central banks systematically eliminated silver from their reserves. The U.S. strategic silver stockpile, established in 1968 with 165 million ounces, was completely depleted by 2002 after being used to suppress prices during the Hunt brothers' attempted market corner in 1980. For at least 20 years, no major central bank held meaningful silver reserves, a dramatic shift from the era when the US, India, and Mexico all maintained substantial silver holdings. And yeah, I mean, if you like, 1 plus 1 equals 2, folks, but for some reason, people with perception, with suppression, with conditioning that they've been taught, very strategically taught, and from media, even maybe even their family, they look at information, but they have this biased perspective and don't just look at it realistically. And it's so baffling. It's very interesting to see how there's so much blatant information pointing towards something, but people will try to justify any type of thing around it to mold their opinion and hold it dear to them. And that's why I say invest with your head, not your heart. Invest with your head, not your heart. Historic announcement. Russia's 2024 decision to include silver in state reserves represents the first crack in central banking decades-long silver avoidance. As part of its draft federal budget for 2025 to 27, Russia allocated 51.5 billion rubles, which is $535 to $538 million, for precious metals purchases, explicitly including silver, for the first time alongside gold, platinum, and palladium. Why is Russia's silver purchase so significant? Russia, the world's 8th largest silver producer at 38.5 million ounces annually, appears to be leveraging its domestic production as part of a broader strategy to reduce dollar dependence following Western sanctions. Industry analysts suggest this move could drive silver up 50% within 24 months, particularly if other nations follow Russia's lead, which will happen. Right? That's not a crazy thing to think. Russia, of course, leading the BRICS nations. Imagine if all the other countries in the BRICS nations also start doing this as well, following suit. Russia cut ties with the dollar a couple years ago. Now you're going to see other countries following suit. And BRICS nations is rapidly expanding, especially with what's going on with NATO and everything, and the amount of silver needed for war. And if Russia is going to continue these wars, and all these other countries continuing warfare, the amount of silver used in warfare is bigger than our EV sector alone, entirely. Central bank gold buying. 2024, 1,086 tons purchased. Third consecutive year above 1,000 tons. Poland added 90 tons, $7.3 billion. Complete absence from silver markets. Why banks avoid silver? Requires 80 times more storage space than gold. Very, very true. And that's why if you are a big buyer, gold does play a good role for that reason. You could fit $100,000 of gold in 1-2 hands. You cannot do that with silver, right? Over half consumed by industry, lacks liquidity, infrastructure, more volatile price movements. Now, this part is to call a safe haven risky is pretty contradictive, but if you're using it for certain things like military or whatever, if you try to go green, like the UK now mandating all their roofs require solar, which is a lot more silver needed for the UK. If you're looking at it from that perspective, then none of these other things matter because you're using it for a specific reason. Russia's strategic move, $535 million allocation over 3 years, first explicit silver reserves announcement, part of de-dollarization strategy, leveraging domestic production. Part of de-dollarization strategy, we know Russia's not going to be the last. Silver supply crisis meets explosive industrial demand. The structural deficit deepens. Like I said, we are talking about hundreds upon hundreds of millions of ounces in the red. Look at this. A deficit of 663 million ounces from 2022 to 2024. In just 2 years, we have a deficit of 663 million ounces that we needed That means we're in the red 663 million ounces. That's almost as much as our global production, which is around 680 million ounces on a good year. So think about in 5 years from now. Think about 10 years from now. And what does Investing 101 teach us? Low supply, high demand pushes the price up. That is what everyone teaches you. Industry reaches record highs, or industrial demand does. Industrial consumption drives this imbalance, reaching 680 million ounces in 2024, projected to exceed 700 million ounces in 25. This represents an astounding shift in silver's demand profile. Solar panel production, 20% growth. EVs accelerating, 5G rapidly expanding, AI data centers, new demand source. Unlike gold, silver consumption is permanent. Think about that. Think about that. Everything is increasing, but we are already seeing massive supply deficits. Everyone wants a slice of the silver pie, but there's not enough pie to go around. Global mine production remains flat at 850, 900 million ounces annually, right? Like I said, 850 on a good year, 900. And it's harder to find silver, and most of it's thrown away in landfills, and it's found by accident. Look, it's a byproduct. 80% comes as byproduct from lead, zinc, copper, gold. They're literally finding most silver by accident. They're not looking for it. Comex inventory crisis. Registered silver available has plummeted to just 23 million ounces. That's how much silver they have available. Imagine if everyone tried to turn, and that's how this right here shows that silver's price is suppressed. This literally proves silver manipulation. So if you're wondering why silver isn't $300, $500, this is why. There's not as much physical silver as there is paper contracts as the Comex is portraying. If you own a paper contract in the Comex, you are supposed to also have physical silver stored in a vault somewhere, in one of their vaults. But that's not true. You think it is, but it's not. So if everyone tried to turn their contracts to physical delivery, it would expose this, because that is where silver's price is suppressed. The physical shortage is not representative of the price. And if it was, then who knows? The sky is the limit. Especially, how could you compare the price of something with physical real world usage and value to a fiat system that's, lost 98% of its purchasing power with $37 trillion of debt, added on top of that. Discovery drought, and also with no use behind it either. So, discovery drought. New primary silver discoveries have become increasingly scarce, with only a handful of significant finds in the last decade. This suggests future supply will continue to rely heavily on byproduct mining, reinforcing the current supply inelasticity. So, then they go into the gold to silver ratio. While gold has seen renewed interest from central banks due to geopolitical instability and de-dollarization, silver's unique supply-demand dynamics represent even more compelling, albeit overlooked, investment case. And they're going into the gold to silver ratio. Historical average is 40 to 1. Current range is around 80 to 90. And if it drops, that means silver's is outperforming gold. When the gold to silver ratio is going upwards, that means gold's outperforming silver. When it's going downwards, that means silver is outperforming gold. So if we know it's at 80 or 90 to 1, and for it to average out, it needs to go downwards, that means that silver will start outperforming gold. And that's why when we saw it 125 to 1 in March of 2020, silver was like $11. Expert forecasts point to explosive growth. David Morgan predicts silver will outperform gold significantly in the coming years, potentially reaching triple-digit prices. I've interviewed David Morgan on my channel. I should actually have him back on soon. Let me write that down. I'm going to get David Morgan back on my channel. Yeah, folks, stay tuned for that, because I need to talk to him. So I'm going to get David Morgan back on. He sent me actually one of his books. It's an incredible book, by the way. He signed it for me as well. But if you want me to interview people like that, then let me know who, right? Like, if you want me to talk to anyone, Andy Sheckman can probably hook me up with them, right? But at the end of the day, David Morgan, Ted Butler, Keith Neumeyer, all these people, they're not just saying this out of their ass. Ted Butler right here, he dedicated his entire life to this work. Highlights the dangerously low Comex inventories and persistent short selling as unsustainable, foreshadowing a major price spike. And that's the part of Ted Butler's work that was so important. He was saying, yes, Comex is suppressing the price of silver, but that will not be able to sustain forever. There will be a huge break. The Comex will get exposed. The evil, cryptic, illegal criminals at the Comex, which, by the way, JP Morgan, the shadiest bank in the world, a lot of those guys are top dogs at the Comex. Not be surprise, surprise, right? The company just got paid $920 million and 3 of their employees got shipped off to prison, by the way, prison, for manipulating the price of silver through spoofing. But, you know, that was his work. That was his work. And then you have the Silver Institute. Consistently projects strong industrial demand growth. Conclusion. Windows closing. Russia's unprecedented move to acquire silver for its state reserves is critical signal in a market poised for explosive growth. Coupled with severe structural supply deficit, burgeoning industrial demand, silver represents a rare opportunity. While central banks universally flock to gold during periods of uncertainty, their historical absence from silver may prove to be a costly oversight, creating a unique entry point for astute investors. The window of opportunity to acquire physical silver at current prices, and at current prices, both of those will be separate things within themselves. A lot of people will be wanting to get their hands on silver, even if it is $200, but they won't have anywhere to get it from. So those two in itself will be different. We have an opportunity to get it and to get it for low prices before the implications of the supply crunch at potential broader central bank interest fully manifests appears to be rapidly closing. What an article, folks. I'm going to wrap this video up here. It's been pretty lengthy. Thank you so much for sticking all the way through if you have. Shows a lot about your character. You want to soak up all the information. You didn't click off this video within 2 minutes thinking you know it all, or you don't need to know anymore. Good stuff. Thank you for watching. Hope you liked the video. Leave a nice comment. Anyways, I'm going to wrap the video up here. I'm about to take my daughter to the zoo. And, see you guys tomorrow. Go check out my last video about the David Bateman. He bought $1 billion worth of silver. $1 billion worth of silver, folks. And I show a picture of it on the video. It is insane. Go check that out. Links in the description of the pinned comment. Love you all. Peace.